Teas were used as far back as thousands of years ago as a way to administer herbal medicine. And I really feel that that helped to engage the saliva, which automatically sent a message to the brain saying help is on its way. So liquid herbs have that value where you can immediately see some change in what's going on, and it delivers the medicine quickly. Whereas when you take capsules, it has to be digested and go through the digestive system. Now, the problem is compliance, because although it's a better way to administer herbs, not all herbs taste good. So today we're going to talk about some good tasting herbs as well as beneficial. And before I go any further, I want to introduce myself. I'm Mary Bourne. I'm a traditional naturopath, and I love sharing natural remedies with people. They've been around for hundreds and sometimes thousands of years because they work, and they work effectively. And although we can't match disease with a natural remedy, that's the realm of the pharmaceutical industry, and we're not allowed to do that. Thousands of years ago, they did match it. What we do is, and we don't necessarily treat disease, we don't prescribe or diagnose, but we work on the way the body works. So if the body is overheated, we want to cool it. And if it's too cool, we want to raise it. So we work with the temperatures of the body, the liquids in the body. If the body's too congested, we need to loosen it. And so these are the way that natural doctors work. So the first tea we're going to talk about is peppermint tea, and it's actually the most common tea that people are aware of. It's refreshing, hot or cold. I have some peppermint in my water, and it's not exactly a tea, but it is adding fragrance and benefits to my water, and can definitely taste it. It's refreshing, and it can be either hot or cold. It supports digestion. It has antioxidant, anti-cancer, antibacterial, and antiviral properties. So peppermint essential oil has been used, but oil and water don't mix. And oftentimes what they'll do, because it's not recommended to put an essential oil in your mouth, and if you put it in tea, it sits there like a little oil glob, and then when you're drinking it, you drink water, and then that one little drop can go down the esophagus and irritate the passageway. So you really don't want to put essential oils in your tea. You are drawing out lots of essential oils, but in that manner, you're not using the concentrated oil like when you get an essential oil such as what's on the screen. Oftentimes what they'll do is they'll put a set number of drops in a capsule, and then you take the enteric-coated capsule, and it opens up into the digestive system. There can be issues with that as well. And obviously, I think that drinking teas are far better because they're keying in the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve can adjust what's going on. It helps to create messages, sending messages to both the brain and the different areas of the body. And I did a video, I would say in the winter time, about the vagus nerve, and you can search through my various videos and find the one on the nervous system and see. So this experiment or study was done, all studies are experiments to begin with, but this study was done and published in the PubMed, and that link is on your screen, and I'll also attach it to the information on the YouTube recording. But the gist of it, the brief of it, was 57 patients with irritable bowel syndrome, according to the Rome 2 criteria, with normal lactose and lactulose breath tests and negative antibody screening for celiac disease. So they didn't, none of these had celiac. They just had irritable bowel, which, you know, just is, it's not fun. And different levels of it, you know. So they gave the enteric-coated capsules twice a day to the control group, and then the placebo group got 2 basically empty capsules. And what they found, and this was a 4-week study, and they did it twice a day. And the symptoms that they were asking the people to grade between 0 and 4 were abdominal bloating, abdominal pain or discomfort, diarrhea, constipation, feeling of incomplete evacuation, pain at defecation, passage of gas or mucus, and urgency of defecation. And the findings were pretty significant. 75% of the patients in the peppermint oil group showed a greater than 50% reduction of total symptoms. So that's pretty amazing. So enteric-coated capsules that include peppermint oil have shown to be quite effective for IBS. 38% were, you know, mind over matter type thing. And so the placebo group thought they were getting the capsules, but they only got 38%. Now, a lot of times, as we know, I would say at least 90% of the time, there are emotions involved in illnesses. And when you have things going on with the stomach, you know, it could be stress, it could be a different, and even the fact, just somebody saying everything's going to be all right seems to calm people down. Now, they have no clue that everything's going to be all right, but it's something we say. And I think it's for that reason, to help that person calm down and get a grip. And oftentimes that alone will arrest some of the inflammation that's going on in their body. But I think that the holding it in your mouth keys in that vagus nerve, and it can initiate the healing process so much faster. And this is important when you're dealing with needing to calm or helping support digestion, but the long-term effect on anti-cancer or quick dealing with viruses and bacteria, this can be really important. So some of the things with the coronavirus are that the virus actually stays in the mucous membranes in the head. Well, how wonderful would that be if you got relief simply by taking peppermint tea twice a day and breathing in that peppermint, which is antiviral, along with refreshing. So I also want to talk with you. Oh, I did a video, which I'll include the link, the 2 mints, the 2 mints I'm going to be talking about today in tea form. So I'll put a link in the description below on these 2 mints. But I want to talk to you a little bit about what's the difference between a tea and an herbal infusion. Now, the medical community uses infusion in a variety of ways, which I was really surprised. That could be putting something in like a vaccine. It's putting it into the body. Well, when you're drinking something, you're actually putting it into the body. But the difference between a tea and an herbal infusion is basically the time it's in the water. So you would put your dry herb in like a sachet like this, and when it was done, you'd pull it out. So most of the time you're infusing, because you don't want to be sucking on small pieces. Like, I don't mind putting it in the cold water, but hot water kind of breaks up the little pieces of it. And next thing you know, you're chewing on mint, which, you know, to some people isn't bad, but to other people, they want a clear tea. And so you would use either like a mesh tea ball where you open it up and put the dried tea in, or here. But fresh, normally you just stuff the fresh petals or leaves into the jar and then pour your boiling water over it. And then when you pour the boiling water over it, you want to cap it, because those fragrances you're losing some of the flavor. So you do want to cover it and let it steep. Now, normally things like flowers and leaves that are fragrant like this, you steep, if you want a tea, for about 5 or 6 minutes. You don't steep it for a long time. But if you want to get the deeper health benefits from the herb, and you want to use things like the stems and the bark and maybe the root, you're going to want to do an herbal infusion. And that means that you pack the jar, pour the boiling water, cover it, and you leave it sit for about a half hour. Then you can strain it and drink it, or you can add it to different things. Like if you were making an infusion of comfrey, you could add that comfrey infusion to Epsom salts and create a very nice bath. And remember, the skin is also the largest absorptive organ yet you have. And so anything that you apply on the skin is actually being absorbed into the body. So it doesn't immediately go to the bloodstream, but it is a way of getting it into the body and eventually into the bloodstream without having to inject it into the bloodstream. So the next tea is lemon balm tea. And like I said, I mentioned that in my 2 minutes video. And lemon balm is lovely. It is recommended for people who have stressed out immune systems. And so it helps not to stimulate the immune system, but to modulate the immune system. So it's great for anybody who doesn't want to stimulate the immune system, which may end up in making their condition feel worse. So, and it's great for the skin. Lemon balm has some really, really good what do you want to say, studies that have shown it to be beneficial. And there is a link in healthline.com, which I'll put in the description below. So it is wonderful for calming the nerves. And anytime you have a hyperimmune system, like in hyperthyroid or rheumatoid arthritis, these are conditions that you have to be really careful about not stimulating the immune response. So these teas that I'm talking about are relatively tasty. There are lots and lots of herbal teas, like I said, that are not tasty, but I chose to do 5 teas that I think are really rather yummy. And of course, you can add lemon to them. You can add honey to the teas, but most of the time, these teas don't need any sweetener. Uh, I found lemon to be sweet enough, peppermint to be sweet enough that you really don't need to add extra. But there are some honeys that are beneficial. If you're trying to soothe the throat, then um, you might want to use a little bit of honey. Uh, but you can decide. But I would recommend that you did not use sugar. If you're trying to do something for health benefits, you you don't want to use sugar. So the next tea is echinacea. Now, echinacea is one that if you have immune issues like hyperthyroid, you would not want to use echinacea. The flowers are used, but not the cone part. So you pick off the petals. You can use the leaves as part of it. So about 50-50 leaves to petals. Um, they can be dried. And I really recommend that you do that in the, you take a paper towel and you wash off your leaves and petals, and then you put your wet leaves and petals in a paper towel, and then cover it with another paper towel, and just leave it set, and let it dry that way. Then, when they're dry, you can fold the underside paper towel and put them in a jar. You want to make sure that they are completely dry. So I would do this no less than a week, because you want to make sure, even though you're working with something that would probably dry out quite fast, or you can use a food dehydrator, but you do not want to go any higher than 150 degrees when you're drying something. You can also, if you have an oven that goes down to 150, it takes about 4 or 5 hours, and most people in the summertime don't want to put their oven on, even for 150. So the paper towel works really good. And if you have a pint jar of the dried herb, that works really well, because you only need like a teaspoon of the herb in the uh, ball or in your bag. I love these bags also. I can put chopped up rosemary in here, whatever herbs you want to, and then throw it into a stew. And then you're not coming up with a stick of rosemary, which some people might enjoy, but I don't. Or peppercorns. I'm not a fan of chewing on a peppercorn, but so I'll put my peppercorns in here, and they'll still get the flavor, but not the um, you're not chewing on the actual peppercorn. This is my favorite way of getting echinacea. It is a liquid in a glycerin base, and I shake it up and toss it in, and basically I let it trickle down my throat. And 9 times out of 10, if I have a sore throat, it's gone within a couple of hours, just using that, sometimes even like 5 minutes. I'm really surprised at how quickly the echinacea works. And like I said, I think it's the fact that the saliva is sending the message to the brain, and then the vagus nerve, which comes right here, right behind the ears, and that which mixes with the saliva, is telling the body help is on the way. It supports immune health. It can fight off infections. There's a, a study that showed it fought off yeast infections, urinary tract infections, and ear infections. And I can understand the ear infection because of the, like I said, the vagus nerve sending that energy right to the ear. Now, I use garlic. I cut off a slice of garlic and put it behind the ear for ear infections. or any bacteria that's in the ear, and overnight it's gone. This has helped people with vertigo and a bunch of things. So I hope that some of these hints have been beneficial and that you'll give me a thumbs up and comment. If you have personal questions, you can email me, Dr. Mary at bornforhealth.com, and I will answer you usually within 24 hours. So if you, want to look at some of the publications that I have, if you can't see the links below, email me and I'll be sure to send you the link for these, because, sharing natural remedies with other people is what I'm all about. And if you can help other people without using harmful medications, there are very few drawbacks to herbs. Like I said, if you have an overstimulated immune system, you wouldn't necessarily want to use echinacea. And you would find that out yourself. You would take it and you say, oh, I don't like the way that made my hands feel worse or whatever. And hopefully you would stay tuned to my channel for recommendations for people that have different situations that would do better on a particular herb. Now, a lot of times, people go out and buy rose hip tea, but if you have a rose bush that forms these, now after the bloom blooms, what happens is just beneath the bloom is the ovum, and the ovum is what forms the rose hip. And so the bloom dies away, and the next thing you have underneath it is the rose hip. And then when they're red, they're ready to be picked. And they are full of wonderful, full spectrum vitamin C, and very, very nutritious, very tasty. Some people like to pound them and then add them to their tea, and that exposes the seed within, which is also another element of health, but it supports vascular health. It's rich in antioxidants like lutein. So I love rosehip tea. And I have a wild rose that grows. Rose hips are, you see how big these are. Well, basically mine is, the size of a half a M&M. They're very small, but I treasure all of them and save them, and I too pound them and put them in a mixture. Now, one of the things I like to blend it with is hibiscus. Now, this year I put my hibiscus out because over the winter I keep it inside. And unfortunately, it got stung by some very, very hot sun. I was gradually moving it into the sun, but for some reason, the sun was shining extremely bright that day and stung all of it. And almost 90% of the leaves died. But it is coming back, and I have hopes that I'll have the beautiful blooms not too far in the future and make some tea. Now, I do have a video on making rose hip or hibiscus tea. It's really, really fun. And you ought to have a child with you when you do it, because there's a great surprise in making hibiscus tea. And it's delicious, both hot or cold. And you can blend it with rose hips for extra nutrition. But it's delicious, and it's a way of getting in more of these rainbow colors that we're supposed to be consuming on a daily basis. And I think we ought to initiate a cup of tea in the afternoon. Now, it can be cold and herbal, or hot and herbal, or it can be a refreshing bath. So I hope you've gotten some great hints in some of the things that I've mentioned in this video. But here are some of the things that just drinking herbal tea can help. It prevents the common cold and flu because it's antibacterial, antiviral. Most of them can affect in lowering blood pressure, effective in cholesterol. Some of them help you to lose weight, and a lot of them have been reputed to support when you have bad cells growing, to kill those bad cells off. It helps in decreasing heart disease risk, protects liver, and prevents aging. There's some really good studies about that. Plus, most of them reduce anxiety and depression. So I hope that you institute a cup of tea in your regimen, and enjoy the benefits of it, both tasty wise and nutritionally. Uh, if you don't have any of these growing in your garden, I bet you do have some dandelions. And if you haven't sprayed them, try some dandelion blossom tea. It's really interesting. I love it. So learn to support your health with good choices and healthy, nutritious foods and herbs. Share what you've learned. Recommend these videos to others so that we can have a healthier um, community and a healthier environment because we're not taking all that medication. So if you have any questions, be sure to email me, Dr. Mary at bornforhealth.com, and enjoy the benefits of this beautiful day this week and all of the things that is provided for you through nature. So this is Dr. Mary for the health of you.